We're live. Terrific. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the SOE Community Webcast. I'm Carlson, Dwarven Overlord of Community, and with us today we have Akil Hooper, known as Lyndro, lead designer on EQ2, and Garret Fuller, also known as Bronstahd. That sounds very manly. He's a design engineer on EQ2, and we are here to talk about the EverQuest II Dungeon Maker. This is our second webcast on the topic, and let me give you a brief rundown of what we're going to do. We have some preset topics that we'd like these guys to talk about, and then we have a whole bunch of questions from you guys that we took on Facebook over the last couple of days, and at the end I'm going to do a couple of demonstrations of dungeon runs. The first one will be a fully equipped dungeon that I have published, and the second one we're going to do is a dungeon that I'm currently building so that I can talk about some of the aspects of building a dungeon that have served me very well. Plus, I'm going to share with you a super secret tip, which these guys are going to ruin by fixing it in-game anyway. But until that time, it's a very cool tip. So without further ado, Dungeon Maker. How's it been going over with you guys? Have you seen a lot of really good feedback on it?
Yeah, I think it's getting pretty good feedback. I think it's going to be a work in progress forever. It's something we plan on supporting. So.
Oh, you do? Good.
Yeah, we're not done with it, but yeah, I think it's going over pretty well in the first iteration, and there is more to come.
I think what you've done is you found something that appeals to the many, many crafters that we have in game who love to decorate. And I will be quite honest, when I built my first dungeon and a half, I have filled it with all sorts of stuff that I have kept over the years. I don't have enough housing for it. It's just sort of sat in a pile in my house because I've always thought, okay, I can decorate my house, but then what am I going to do with it? Big deal. Now I've got a reason. And so, yes, I'm addicted. I'm going to start a self-help group, and you guys are all welcome to join it. So, have you played any dungeons yourself?
A few, yeah.
And what do you feel is a big draw for a dungeon? Because I see two types of dungeons. You've got the sort of get as many dungeon marks as humanly possible, and then the ones where people go really all out to decorate and try to tell a storyline.
Yeah, I've noticed that as well. There are a handful of people that have really put a lot of effort into the whole aesthetic of the dungeon. Mm-hmm. I tend to prefer those personally, but honestly, most often I find myself in the stack of 3 monsters,
yeah, the one
space
that's
evenly throughout.
Oh my God, 200 dungeon marks,
yeah.
blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
Because
you can always tell those ones. They're very creatively named.
Yes, yes. Because you want to be efficient when you play. And I think it's kind of our job to make it so the aesthetic dungeons are just as rewarding as the dungeons that people are...
Who are you?
Garret Fern.
Who's he?
They don't know who you are. Introduce yourself.
Oh.
She introduced them.
I should. Go ahead.
They're complaining? Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Garret Fern, new design engineer as of September on the EverQuest II team. I'm kind of heading up Dungeon Maker and Public Quests right now.
There you go. Now you know who to blame.
Yes.
We'll give you a cell phone number at the end so you can voice your opinions directly. No, we'd never do that. Unless you pay station cash, then we'll consider it. Anyway, so yes, there is a drive to get dungeon marks because that's the chief way of populating your dungeon, and you can buy decorations that way, and the all-important boss mobs. The boss mobs do drop in game as well, here and there, but that is a slow process, and I've tried really hard and haven't gotten any to drop yet, so that's how I buy mine too. And it's 1,800 dungeon marks to get a boss mob, so you guys have an event called Extra Dungeon Mark Days. Wow, that's really creative too. Who's writing this stuff anyway?
The same guys making the dungeons.
Yeah.
Extra Dungeon Mark Days. That's pretty straightforward.
We contract out our copywriters.
So how much is that, the bonus for the dungeon marks during this period?
25%.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. That's really, really nice. And it runs through to January 30th.
Yep.
That's going to be really good. I expect to see everybody out there running dungeons for that. That's for sure. So I hear that you're planning on switching out maybe some of the offerings that you have for dungeon marks. We were talking briefly earlier about maybe the boss mob packs.
Yeah, so when we put the boss mob packs together, we didn't message this very well when we first launched. When we put the boss mob packs together, it was actually our intention to do kind of a seasonal booster pack system with them. So so a certain boss mob pack would be available for a couple months, and then we'd rotate in the next boss mob pack. So right now we're actually planning on changing out boss mod packs sometime in February, so there'll be different bosses available.
That's really cool. And let's see, the Dungeon Maker rewards, there's a lot of different types, right? Are they for your adventurers, the avatars that you play in Dungeon Maker, or for your play character?
There are two types of rewards. The ones that are for people who want to decorate their dungeons. You can get new maps, you can get new furniture, you can get the decoration packs and buff objects, and then there's everything else, which is all the loot, and that's all for your character. All the glass items and the mystery crates and all of that stuff gives you items that are appropriate for play characters to use.
Oh, very cool. So you're in charge of the Dungeon Maker product now. What do you plan to introduce in the future that you can tell us about that doesn't get you fired?
I guess the biggest thing we're working on right now is adjusting the avatars so they're more fun to play. One of the biggest pieces of feedback that we've been hearing both internally and externally is that, I just kind of mash the buttons for a while and then I'm on auto attack until I either die and have to run back or win and then have to stand around and regen for 20, 30 seconds. So we're trying to adjust that so it's more fun to actually play the dungeons. As much fun as it is to decorate, we want it to be just as much fun to play.
Yeah, because they can be fairly predictable. We've already talked about the ones that max out the number of dungeon marks, and they accomplish that by the formula that any of the 4 standard mobs can be stacked together, because that's how many you can kill and still survive an encounter, as long as nothing else aggroes on you at the time. I spend a lot of time dead because I don't pay enough attention. But making things more interesting would involve perhaps new effect objects, that sort of thing?
New effect objects, new abilities, adjustments to the abilities of the avatars, adjustments to mana regeneration. I don't want to get too in-depth on what we have planned because we're still kind of prototyping out what it'll look like. But just the chief goal is to make it fun, and we'll get that out when it is fun.
Yeah, we want the minute-to-minute gameplay of playing an avatar through a dungeon to be something that people are interested in and excited about. And right now, what do players say? They call it face rolling. You could face roll all the avatars and get through your dungeons.
Kinda. I don't know if you could do it with all of them.
Not all of them, no.
I'd be really interested in trying to take, say, one of the healer avatars and see how I do with that, but that would be pretty slow. So we also heard rumors, and maybe you can confirm this, that there may be some sort of a Dungeon Maker tie-in to Erelisi Day, which is coming up in February. What can you tell us about that?
Okay, I'll take that. Yeah, there are going to be a number of rewards for the Erelisi Day quests that are, in fact, Dungeon Maker. We're going to have some characters that you can place, so spawners, and also some avatars.
Wow. Okay, that sounds pretty exciting. Oh, speaking of avatars, how's the progress going? We know that you have the Play as Your Own Avatar on test server. Is that likely to go live soon, or?
It's not going to go soon. It's something that we're still looking at. There's some technical issues that we still need to overcome, some balance issues. So it's not something that we're looking at doing in the short term, but it's something that we're still looking at. We're still considering.
Ah, terrific. Okay, so we hear also that you have a new dungeon layout coming, and that you guys snuck some pictures in here for us. Do you mind if we put those on the screen?
No, go for it.
All right. If you could, how many of those do we have? Awesome. Okay, talk about the new dungeon layout. I'm very interested to find out. See, I can't even see this from where I'm sitting. Oh, she's going to turn the monitor. Awesome.
Well, so actually we tried something different with this dungeon layout. Our existing dungeons are all, while they're themed for Mistmore or Crushbone or whatever, they're not actually dungeon maps. This one is actually the Poet's Palace dungeon map, and we pulled all the objects out of it, and we're going to let you decorate it and play through it however you want. So
nice.
So instead of retooling and rebuilding a dungeon this time, we're going to give you one that already exists. And if this goes over well, obviously there are lots of dungeons in EverQuest II that we have access to give out. So hopefully this is something that people are excited about, because I think it's a big win for us to be able to just say, hey, you know what, here's a new dungeon that's something that you've played through. What can you do with it? Give us something original and unique in this dungeon that you're familiar with.
So the immediate question that comes to mind is right now we can publish up to 3 dungeons. Are you planning on increasing that limit, or should we just keep them all on deck and then just put up 3 at a time?
Well, for every dungeon map you unlock, you can publish another dungeon.
Really?
Yeah. So when you buy new maps, it unlocks the ability to publish additional dungeons.
I'm not going to have a life anymore. I bought all the maps.
Oh,
I
yes,
am
you
not
can-
kidding.
yeah.
I can publish one for each?
+3.
Hello, dear husband. I'll see you next year. That is
But
terrific.
I don't know if we put an upper cap on it. I don't remember offhand if there is. But I
Oh,
mean,
I'll let you
definitely-
know real soon.
Yeah, but definitely, as you buy more maps, you can publish more dungeons.
Wow, that's terrific. I really like these images. So is this going to be available for sale for station cash or dungeon marks or both?
Both, like the existing maps, will be available for both.
I quite like the combination of either or, because then it's either you can work through the game
Yeah.
to get the dungeon marks,
Or if you
for
want it
me-
immediately, you can buy
Yeah,
it.
when I get home at 11 o'clock at night, I like to just go out and buy it. That's really terrific. All right, we'll have a quick look at the rest of these pictures, and I'm actually going to start doing some of the questions from players as well, because there was one very specific one here. Oh yes, James Cheney asked, will there be more dungeon maps? An outdoorsy type would be very neat, like maybe a clean version of the Isle of Refuge. I think even if you had to pay station cash for it, tons of people would get it. More maps would be neat in any case. Well, James, you can see that we do have a new zone coming out now. So what about the outdoorsy zones? There's the Tenebrous Island that's currently used as a housing object. Can we do that sort of thing?
Right now, the system doesn't really support outdoor open areas because the system is built around rooms and hallways, and that's how the scoring works. That's how your progress through. That's how the spawner. That's how the buff objects
supply,
work.
yeah.
So everything is built around this room system. So we could do things like arbitrarily define rooms, but I don't think that's quite what players would want. So.
Yeah.
Well, it's not something we're opposed to. We don't really have a good solution to do full outdoor zones, but there are some small dungeons, open air dungeons, and we could definitely take a look at some of those. But as to like kind of an open air blank slate, the system doesn't really support that currently.
Gotcha. Okay. Tommy Magnuson has asked 4 questions, so clearly somebody who plays this as much as I do. The first one is, will we ever see chests or mystery crate drops or something similar in the dungeon?
I won't say never, but the reason why they aren't in there right now is because you are playing another avatar. And if we gave that avatar loot, when you went back to your own character, that avatar would still have loot. And so, and so while it's not impossible to overcome, that's the reason why it doesn't work. Why we didn't set that up at launch, give you loot or drops in the actual dungeons, is because there's no real connection between the avatar and your play
Gotcha.
character.
Okay, the next one. Now this is a really tough one. Will there ever be any developer's choice or GM or guide choice tab for the dungeons? There are a lot of token farms with high ratings now just because they were released first or have lots of guildies and friends in games. They're tedious, boring, and probably took an hour maximum to make. Some dungeons are truly outstanding but lost in the excessive amount of token run dungeons. What do you think?
So I don't know if
Nothing's impossible.
No,
That's
it's no
typical politician
It's
response.
not. No, it's not that. This is something that we're both very passionate
Yeah.
about. Like, I understand that the token run dungeons are important and people love them, but I think that there are lots of gorgeous dungeons out there that people aren't getting access to, and we're looking at several ways internally to kind of get people into some of those dungeons and have those people not waste their work. It's just a matter of coming up with something that's elegant and not exploitable, because we don't want to put something in that's awesome for the decorators that then the people who just put the token run dungeons in are going to use to get more people to look at their token run dungeons.
Right. Oh, that's going to be challenging.
Yeah, just to kind of echo what Akil's saying, I mean, it's an issue that's very important to both of us, but it's a hard problem to solve, to say the least. So be patient with us, please.
All right. Tommy also asks, any chance to get a physical representation that will take people to the Dungeon Maker menus? Lots of new people have no idea how to access them. They're suggesting a cave or something similar in all big cities.
I would rather figure out a way to figure out how to get people to understand how to get to the dungeons, to put something in the cities to get them to the dungeons, because it's not really tied to the cities.
Right.
Anything we put in the cities, we'd also have to explain to players how to get there and what the big cave is doing now in the middle of Freeport.
Right.
We talked at one point about having like a pedestal somewhere or something along those lines, but it's a system that doesn't really have a physical connection to the world. So I think artificially shoehorning one in isn't really going to get us there either.
Okay.
But if I would like to solve a problem. If the problem is that people aren't able to find the dungeons, don't understand how to get to the system, that's definitely something we should look at resolving.
Okay. And Tommy's last question is, are there any plans to increase token rewards while running a full group? As it is now, the dungeons become much harder, even some epic mobs. Epic mobs? We have epic mobs?
Ish.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Even some epic mobs, and they take longer to finish, but we still get the same reward as if we were soloing them.
So if you tier up mobs, since the tier, actually, I should explain this because I've seen some confusion about this.
Actually very good,
Yeah,
yes.
tier is something that we talk about internally in kind of different terms than what players talk about externally. Like they talk about tier, like first tier is like level 10, second tier is level 20.
Right, but in this case, they start out as a double down arrow
Right,
mob.
yeah, and so that's tier for us, and we didn't really have a good way to translate that into player terms. So we used our internal term, which is tier.
Right.
And so tier increases as your group size increases, and then when it goes to tier 9, if you've got a tier 9, sorry, talking probably. When it goes to the max tier, when it goes to group tier, the next tier above that is raid. So we just need to fix it so it doesn't ever go to raid.
Yeah.
But if there are issues with group difficulty, it's something we could look at tuning.
I think they're fine with the group difficulty. They want to increase token rewards for these tougher
If we could work
ones.
if there are issues with the risk versus reward, it is something that we can address. So maybe increasing the token rewards, maybe increasing the difficulty. Right now the system is based off of how many points you get for killing stuff, and everyone gets the same amount of points. And to increase the number of points based on your group size it's an increased level of complexity, whereas decreasing the difficulty based on your group size is a much simpler solution.
They're all sitting at home with slide rules and calculators and this sort of thing, working on this.
So they'll be sending us the math?
I hope so.
Awesome.
Did you ever think it was going to be this complicated when you embarked on this grand project?
Oh my goodness, yes.
Yes.
Oh my goodness, yes.
There was never any question.
Yeah, and in fact, our first internal plan was even more complicated. Yeah.
Wow.
So this is the simpler version of Dungeon Maker.
Ariel De Silva asks, would it be possible to use market boards while editing so you could access decorative items from your sales crates, house vaults, and so on? Because all we can do is use our backpacks to bring in items, and is very limiting and disruptive to the creative process. Well, I have huge bags, huge tracts of land, but I cram them full of stuff, and I face the same issue. I have a big dungeon that I'm never going to fill in 100 years, and I keep having to exit, go back to the bank vaults and this sort of thing.
So this was actually intentional, and it's something that we can change if need
It's
be.
a time sink. I see how
it was more because there needed to be some division between what showed up in your toolbox and what didn't. And so at launch we said, okay, this division is what's in your bag and what isn't in your what you have with you and what you don't have with you.
Gotcha.
If that's not working, we can look at creating some other logic structures, some other divisions. But that's why it works that way currently, is because it was a very clean place to split what showed up in the toolbox.
Here's a question that might be good for you, Garret.
Yeah.
Brandon Chachenko asks, and I'm just going to read part of this question because it's a really long one, gets into all sorts of intricate requests. So they're talking about the ability to break a dungeon into a modular setup where you have different pieces that you can put together into your own layouts. Why can't we do that? Oh, let me count the ways, he's saying to himself.
There's really two big ways, and I'm not a graphics programmer, so I can't give the exact technical reasons, but so each room, corridor, whatever, is actually a separate piece that then gets placed together by an artist in Maya. And on either side of those, there's a portal that prevents basically the viewport out of that drawing infinitely. there's no good way to piece those together on the fly. Maya does that for us. It compiles the map down into a file that we can use, and then it's ready to go.
Their next question is, can we use Maya?
Can we use Maya? No, we can't use Maya.
Okay.
The other issue is our pathfinding system is zone-based. It's not room-based. So we would have to come up with a solution to work around that as well. I think it's an idea that we both love, but it's a lot of work, and we can't really say that it's feasible right now.
So Brandon touches upon the pathing thing as well by alluding to a multi-waypoint patrol path. Will we ever get that? Because right now we can have something patrol, but there's just a start point and an end point. And we've seen a number of people ask for something where you could set a variety of points so that they can engineer some very specific encounters. Is that possible?
Greg Rothgar is on jury duty today. When he gets back, I will ask him.
Yeah.
You didn't cross that piece out, so I thought I would ask.
Yeah.
But yes, we will follow up with
Yeah.
Greg Rothgar Spence when he gets out of jury duty. Yeah. James Cheney asked, will there be more dungeon maps? Oh, sorry, we already did that one. And duh.
I think that's on there about 5 times.
Yes. All right. UI Jones says, sorry if this has been asked, as I just came back to the game, but are there any plans to allow us to create dialogue and scripted scenes in our dungeons? I'm actually going to demonstrate that when we do the demo later on. You can script quite a lot just with the dialogue options that you allow us to give to the NPCs. But I think they're probably asking about more complex scripting along the lines of when you kill something, something else pops or something else happens in the dungeon. Is that ever going to be possible?
It's not currently possible. It's not possible in the short term because we don't have any good ways to create those types of links on the fly. So at least in the short term, most of the scripting that we give you is going to be based off of things that can be placed and affect creatures in a very contained manner.
Okay.
Particularly, we don't have a good interface in mind for intuitively indicating to players what sort of interactions are available, how do they function, and how do they make them work.
Gotcha.
I mean, we don't want to get to the point where we're building like an entire scripted, like a visual scripting language, and that's not really what we're looking for. Maybe eventually, we'll have.
So what I'm going to say to you people who really want to do stuff that complex, apply for an apprenticeship with these guys, maybe an internship, something like that. I'm sure they could use the help. Anyway, Marina says, it seems that the market prices have crashed for many Dungeon Master loot drops, at least on Antonia Bale, same on Crushbone actually, which may be a function of there being far too frequent drops, thus flooding the market and causing players to undercut one another and drive down prices. I know that for a lot of spawners on Crushbone, you can get them for like 5 silver, that sort of thing. So she's wondering if you can speak to the rarity of certain Dungeon Master loot drops, and if some are truly rare and hard to find, or should we expect to eventually find everything on the market for dirt cheap? Yes, that was the answer.
Well, first of all, I will say that I won't claim that the rarity is perfect, but I do want to say that it was intentional that the common items are in fact common. We understand that a lot of people that are really, really into housing aren't necessarily into fighting monsters and going out and farming loot. So we wanted to make sure that the people that were really, really into housing had access to at least a common set of spawners. That being said, yes, there are rare ones. I think probably even rare ones that haven't been found yet.
Oh,
and
really?
Hopefully
Can you give us an example?
Oh, we'd have to look and see.
We'd
what's
have to
been
look,
found.
yeah.
I don't know what everything is.
Can you give us an
available.
example to post on Facebook of one that hasn't been found yet, just as a teaser?
Yeah, I guess we could take a look and see what's rare. I don't know exactly what hasn't been
That's
found.
cool.
So.
You don't even have to tell us where. Just sort of a
I think it's usually pretty obvious where they drop from because they all drop from
creatures of that type.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. All right, guys. We will pester these guys until we get a hint as to where one of these unfound rare ones will be.
But just to kind of sum up, hopefully we won't wind up in a situation where everything's on the marketplace for 3 copper.
So we have another dungeon layout related question from Silena. Will we ever get a cave layout? All the current ones are too building-y for some projects. Now we already talked we can't have a fully open air one, but would a cave type layout work?
We had talked about split paw as
Yeah.
an option.
Yeah, so we can definitely put together K1. I can't say it'll come quickly, but it's something that we can definitely put on the list for our next dungeon or next set of dungeons.
And then the last question we have from Miss Nomer, and this is another one of these ones that's related to making the creation a little more complex and story-driven. Are there any plans to include NPCs that players can converse with for those wanting to create a more story-driven experience?
There are no plans currently to do that. It's on our wish list. It's something that we'd like to do because we know that it's very important for people to be able to tell stories in their dungeons. But we've got our big list of stuff that we want to get in there, and that's on there, but not at the top of it.
Terrific. I've also got a minor suggestion for how you can help drive a story in your own dungeon that I'll be showing you in a few minutes. But first, we just want to say thank you very much to Garret and to Akil for coming by and talking some more about Dungeon Maker, showing us some pictures of the new Poets Palace dungeon. When is that coming out again?
It's coming out soon. Yeah.
I don't think we're allowed to use that word. Are there any extra...
In the next game update.
Oh, okay. That's not bad at all. I could wait for that. Now, what are you guys laughing at? Are there some interesting comments?
They want to see your feet.
Whose feet?
Yours.
Why?
We don't know.
That sounds just kind of weird. I'm just wearing ordinary shoes. Why?
They keep making characters and spamming it. I think we're missing something.
Everybody hold up a foot. Come on, let's
They want to
amuse
see
the
your
players.
feet.
No, come on. I want to see yours. I want to see what's so different about mine.
I've got silly shoes on.
Exactly. Okay. All right, you guys happy now? That was really weird. This isn't some strange channel, is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hopefully we just ruined their fantasy by...
Yeah, which chat room are you guys in?
Yes, exactly. Before this goes way overboard, you guys can take off now, and I'm going to log into a dungeon. Let me know when we've switched. Robin's working on that. Switching. Did raising our feet ruin the connection? Okay. Minor technical difficulties. This is where Garret should...